What's up, everyone? Thralls Miller here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So, we got about 2 more weeks remaining before we're going to put our year list because there's still some releases we wanted to go over. And one of them that surfaced that came out on the 3rd of December was the newest album from Genocide Pact, entitled Genocide Pact. And I had to cover this one because we've actually seen these guys. We saw them on the Contamination Tour in 2018 with Gate Creeper, Incantation, Dying Fetus. Holy shit, that was a good time.
Yep.
So this comes out on Relapse Records on the 3rd, again, of December. This band formed in 2013 in DC, and this is their 3rd album overall. Now, I got into them when their 2nd album, Order of Torment, dropped, and I really dug that. In fact, we saw them, again, play all those songs from it.
Yep.
And then I went and found their 1st album, Forged in Domination, which, holy shit, that one's even heavier. And needless to say, I was pretty excited to hear this one because these guys play pretty much a brand of death metal that I guess you could say is infused with hardcore, very similar to bands like Gate Creeper, Frozen Soul, 200 Stab Wounds. And if you're going to go back even farther, there's definitely some nods to Obituary on here.
Mm-hmm.
Find a riff, make it sound evil, make it sound dirty, groove it the fuck up, and that is pretty much their formula. So this opens with Led to Instinction, and I mean, this is one of those right away, like, if you like what you've heard within the first 30 seconds, you're going to like pretty much everything else on this album. Groove laden as hell. The production on here is like dirty but well mixed. Like the guitar tones are filthy. It's not an HM2 tone for sure, but it is murky.
And very raw sounding. There's no studio magic going on here. You know, if you've never seen these guys, I can tell you that what you get on this album is pretty much what you're going to get live. And I like that it gets right to it. There's no filler on this record whatsoever. There's no intros. There's no nothing. Just everything just pounds it in there.
Yeah, and I can't really call it like bullet training because the speed on this is mostly kind of that mid-tempo, kind of, again, like Obituary groove pretty much throughout. You get moments where it gets faster and thrashier, namely Deprived Degrade, which is the shortest song and probably, well, they're all kind of angry, I think, but that one's like fast angry. That song pretty much just goes from an opening groove to a D beat to thrash to blast beats. It just progressively gets more and more intense and then kind of settles in a nice groove in the end. But it's easily the most aggressive fast song because most of this, again, mid-tempo, big, chuggy riffs. I mean, holy shit, dude. These riffs, they're simple. They're elegant. They're cavemanish.
Very caveman.
This is the kind of music you sit back and listen to while eating meat off of a rather large bone, and then you club the person to death next to you to assert dominance. That's important.
I think they should start selling those at shows. Just a big old stick of meat, and then afterwards you get to club people in the pit with the bone.
I don't know if you want to weaponize the pitters because, man, this has those kinds of hardcore grooves on there where you know what kind of pit you're gonna get. Like, yep, this dude's windmilling, and if I get any closer, I'm gonna die.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't want to arm him with a bone. Plus, if it breaks, it turns into a shank.
Yeah, that's true.
You gotta think about that thing.
I mean, hear me out. Obituary, Incantation, Gate Creeper, Frozen Soul, Besserus, and Genocide Pact Tour 2022. Hear me out. I think that's
heavy.
Perfect. Yep.
That's a heavy bill.
Something I like about this band is they not only have these heavy chugger riffs, but they like to make them even more nasty with bends. Just it really adds, I think, to the overall brutality of such simplistic riffs. In the track Mutilated Vision, first of all, I want to say that I think the kick drum has no resonant head on the back. It just sounds like it's an open, just pummeling beat down.
Cannon fire in the distance.
And I like the really dark cymbals too. They've got dark, heavy cymbals. There's no China. It's just this giant ride and a couple crashes, and it just makes everything sound heavier than everything else.
Those toms are pretty damn heavy too.
Just sour lemons throughout.
That's pretty much it. Like, it's, again, like so primal and minimalistic, but it doesn't really lose its charm. Like, the riffs just kick ass. It's kind of the thing, like, you don't really necessarily need to be super technical if you have solid riffs. If you have that as a backbone to build off of, which honestly, these guys aren't really building on top of these riffs. They're just letting them kind of ring out. It's like, yeah, you like that? It's making you do this. Clearly you do. Yep. Then they just keep going. And when it comes down to like everything else, like the drums stay in a steady, heavy groove, really like tight in the pocket drums, big slowdowns too.
And that big dinner bell ride, accent just ting, 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 yeah.
Mosh dinner served. Go hurt each other. Thank you. Buy merch. All that will be printed on the back of their t-shirt, I'm sure. Now, there are a lot of bands like this, and that is maybe a knock against it, but not really, because I like a lot of bands like this. I like this particular style of death metal. The one cool thing that I think they do maybe slightly differently, and I'm not saying, you know, they're the only one that does it, because that wouldn't be true. But the fact that they throw in like more death doom moments, a lot of this more hardcore infused death metal, like namely again like 200 Stab Wounds, it just pummels you. Like it is nonstop chug-a-thon, and it stays hyper aggressive the entire time. These guys like to slow it down and maybe make it more oppressive than aggressive. The opening to Barbaric Regression goes even further back than Obituary. It goes all the way back to Black fucking Sabbath. The single big chords they hit, it just screams Sabbath, and the fact that a lot of their like chord progressions descend, especially when it comes down to those big slowdowns, which generally those are kind of their own moments, but sometimes they'll just take that main riff they're working on and slow it down a step. And well, as you know, death metal fans, we love that shit. That shit's awesome. But the fact that it's a little bit more doomy, especially in the last track, Industrial Obedience, which is a giant death doom song. Like, it is probably the most death doom oriented song on here. It does get heavier and faster in some spots, but the overall feeling is just doom and bleakness instead of just hyper aggression. But it's kind of cool how this whole album's paced, because those moments don't necessarily stack on top of each other very often, which is nice. And I think like a good example of them kind of utilizing that shift to like death doom to like death metal, Perverse Dominion. The opening of that song is something that is very familiar if you listen to Incantation a lot. The giant blast beat sections with like dirty, ugly, just evil as fuck tremolo riffs, to slowing that bitch down and making it even dirtier and more evil with like just some single, just dirty, doomy notes.
But then they harmonize them too, which makes it even more creepy.
And harmonies outside of maybe like one or two more melodic leads on here are probably the biggest doses of melody you get on here. Perverse Dominion, again, Barbaric Regression, and Industrial Obedience are probably the most melodic of tracks, but that's not that melodic. It's mostly just brutal and in your face. Industrial Obedience does throw in some like dissonant melodies. It's the only place I think that's actually on there. But for the most part, you're getting that just nasty, groove-laden death metal with that hardcore influence, especially in songs like Fossilized Future, which that song has such a big hardcore feel, but I like the switch up every now and then. They go from a hardcore riff to, again, an Obituary riff. I know these guys probably have the first 3 Obituary albums probably on vinyl. I'm going to just take a guess on that. I get it. They're awesome albums. I definitely got a ton of Obituary on here. But yeah, there really isn't much outside of this. And honestly, I kind of like that. There's not a lot of elements colliding on here. They kind of stuck to a very simple, straightforward, heavy fucking plan.
This is all about riffs, I think, more than anything, and an overall just kind of pulse of the album just has just a fist pumping, just bleh, you know, which I really like, especially after a year full of heavy, crazy death metal and just, you know, mind-numbing, brutalized riffs. It's just cool to tone it back a little bit and go back to kind of like the caveman era of metal.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, the entire time I was listening to this, I was thinking, man, did they play this in front of like just a group of, well, meatheads like us? And I was like, look at them, they're banging their heads. We'll keep doing this. And honestly, like, there are moments there that instantly had me that they just kind of hammer on one specific riff. Mutilated Vision has such a awesome chuggy riff with this really cool tag at the end of it. And then Purged Flesh might have just the perfect death metal riff on this album. it's instantly hooky.
Yes.
And it's just a simple, straightforward chug, but it's just a really solid riff. Mm-hmm. And again, this kind of just proves you can lay on a riff and you can still keep it interesting. And again, with this mix, I think it's a little bit better than Order of Torment. I think the vocals are still in the back a bit, but the fact that I think he's enunciating more, it's less of just that dull roar that was on the last one. Didn't think it was bad, but this one you can actually make out words a little bit more. But yeah, overall, this was a lot of fun to listen to, and I think that's kind of the main thing. And seeing as we just got back from a show, seeing a lot of bands that play a similar style to this, yeah, the necks hurt. But this is a nice little comfort zone. And yeah, I was eagerly awaiting this one. I was kind of sad it was all the way in December. I had to wait for it, but really solid stuff. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. This is killer. It doesn't, again, reinvent the wheel. And again, there are a ton of bands that sound like these guys in terms of that hardcore meets old school death metal sound. But I think the fact that they include some death doom elements kind of sets them apart a little bit. And we review a ton of bands that sound like a ton of other bands too. You almost kind of have to remove that partially from the equation, because for me, a lot of this came down to execution and feel. The album flows well. The riffs are plentiful. Oh my God. This is just riff city. And it's not like a huge variety of them, but they're just playing the right ones that make you want to fucking break things.
Right.
That's kind of a cool thing with death metal. It needs to stay brutal, and this is just a really well-written album that does not necessarily need a lot of elements to be a good album. Check this shit out. If you haven't checked out any of their other stuff, it's pretty damn similar. If you like meat and potatoes, caveman, knuckle dragon, unga bunga style death metal, that. Go get it.
Oh yeah, it's a 4 from me as well. I really enjoyed this. In fact, it's almost like a palate cleanse. Like, after listening to, hundreds and hundreds of heavy, fast, angry bands, it's nice to kind of go back to the basics. There is nothing really overly flashy in here. It's not centered on lead work. It's centered on just heavy riffs and, just kind of a stomp, an overall stomp pace. I can just see a bunch of people in the pit just going, brr, 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 brr.
With their hands?
No, with their hands, with their feet.
Oh, okay.
But you can't see my feet, ass. So
can't see that either.
It was simple and fun, and it really does just fall into that line of, here's meat and potatoes, here they are, enjoy them. And it doesn't reinvent the wheel. It kind of goes back to the time period when the wheel was discovered. Brr, ooga booga.
The wheel go round.
Meat.
Pretty much it.
And I like that. Go see them live and go buy this and buy some merch and support these bands.
I gotta give them credit on the album cover. That's a nice nod to Napalm Death and Terrorizer. Like, it's pretty fucking close.
Yep.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to support us, there is a link down below. We also have shirts available. If you would like one, hit us up on thrallsmetal@gmail.com. We're eventually going to reload on shirts and possibly some other merchandise. Thank you guys for your input. We're going to pretty much take that into consideration, because we don't have good ideas. Those don't happen like ever.
Not what you call a smart man.
No. Brain good? Okay, maybe?
Little ouchie.
And Jammin John has something to say.
I do. If you've watched any of our videos in the past, or even a video that I released in the past for What's John Jammin', bringing back What's John Jammin'. If you're in an unsigned band or are stuck in the underground and have no idea what to do, send me material, because thus far I only have 2 submissions, and I would like to have more of your input versus me going out and finding things on my own. So now is your time to shine. Hit me up at jamminjohn666@gmail.com, and I will review your stuff. Again, to the bands I already have waiting in the balance, it's coming. I was trying to see if more people wanted to play. So that's what I'm looking for. Hopefully you have something to bring to the table. Please bring it. Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to thank every last one of you, because you all fucking rule. Thank you so much for getting us this far. We're thinking about ideas for a 10K giveaway because that seems like a realistic possibility now.
Holy crap.
I know. That's pretty ridiculous.
I remember when we hit 100 subs.
That was pretty cool, too.
And I was excited then. And now we're talking 10,000.
That's insane.
10.
That's a made-up number. It's too big.
It is. Huge.
But with that, of course, thank you once again, and we will catch you later.